The clock is ticking fast.
A long time ago, life began to form on the Earth. These life forms began to gather energy from the sun in order to grow, and also they learned how to store it. As ecosystems grew, the life forms learned that they could share the surplus energy and even use it to their advantage. The sharing of the energy led to new life forms storing the energy in different ways. Humans eventually came along and also started to gather energy. We gathered berries, fruits, vegetables, mushrooms, and killed animals in order to grow and maintain ourselves, as well as store some of that energy for the future, just as all the other life forms were doing. Humans began to live in small communities to balance the energy being gathered. Some humans had too much energy, perhaps in terms of having too many of one kind of fruit, while others had less, and they could rely on one another when one was short of energy and another one had a surplus. Humans also began to invent tools in order to gather energy faster. At first, these tools consisted of knives, hammers, scythes, hoes, and so forth. Humans were insatiable and always wanted things faster. We planted crops in fields, gathered them, and learned to turn them into goods, for example, clothes. We developed ways to transport our energy further from us in order to help communities who were more distant and build networks of trade, so if one community had too much energy, they could bring it to another community that was in lack. We developed wagons with wheels in order to move larger loads of energy, and also to move it faster using the energy of horses. The larger the load, and the faster the vehicles went, the more energy the vehicles themselves required. For instance, more horses pulling, and the same applied to the machines being built. For example, machines with pedals that moved the machine, requiring more energy input from humans. Some humans went so far with the energy requirements that they would capture other humans and force them into slavery so that they could use them for gathering more energy. Things became so complex and so demanding that some humans started to theorize that humans should specialize in certain things, instead of focusing on doing everything independently, so that one human became reliant on the next human, and they could then trade with one another. They invented money so that it would be easier to trade with everyone doing different work. How would they know that their trade had equal energy input, that is to say, value? They both wanted compensation, and their trades were probably rarely equal. Someone would end up at the be-her end of the deal in terms of energy. We are creatures that gather energy, but this then switched to gathering money, and since many trades were not equal, if one could find a way to convince someone that the trade was equal, but always be on the side of the one coming out on top, then they could gather more money, with which they then could buy more energy when needed. In truth, the money began to depart from reality in terms of its equivalence to energy. Meanwhile, exploitation of other humans continued, and some, like Thomas Malthus in his book from 1826, had thought that we had reached full capacity in terms of reaching a food production that could maintain the welfare of the population. Eventually we found out that we could use the energy that other life forms had stored for hundreds and thousands of years. We built trains where people could move further and faster than ever before and find new land to gather more energy, and also to move the energy back and forth from place to place in the form of other products. We were still insatiable and built cars, trucks, planes, rockets, and space vehicles. The faster these vehicles went, the more energy they required. In order to power these vehicles, we needed more energy. We decided to steal more and more energy from the other life forms on Earth in order to power these things. We squandered most of the easy-to-obtain energy sources, and it made modern humans very wealthy. We grew and expanded the human community to the maximum. Gradually, we realized that the easy energy stolen from the other life forms was destroying the climate, and theorized that we could replace our easy energy with direct energy from the sun, as well as other residual energies in the Earth system, such as wind. While maintaining the old stolen energy extraction from the other life forms, we began to steal more minerals and rare earth materials to build solar panels, wind turbines, and beheries to store more energy. The beheries was still a type of stored energy using materials that took energy for the life forms to make. Meanwhile, we continued extracting the old energy sources, which took more energy to extract. We put solar panels and wind turbines on our energy extraction devices to try to avoid the breaking point. That is to say, the point at which it takes the same amount of energy in to extract the same amount of energy out. We are moving ever closer to this point. Creating renewable energy sources is still draining energy from the system to try to build them to capacity, but there is not enough energy to build them in time. Power is the amount of energy transferred per unit time. We are running out of time in order to power our civilization at its current size. How did we get here? The first law of thermodynamics states that energy can be transformed from one form to another, but can be neither created nor destroyed. The energy we have been gathering as life forms for thousands of years from the inputs of the sun are being squandered rapidly by the population levels being high. We are almost 10 billion people on the planet. If we had 500 million people on the planet, the energy that we have used up since the Industrial Revolution, we could have powered our civilization for much longer had we not used it all up so quickly. We could have used the energy gradually to to renewable energies because we would have had more time. The second law of thermodynamics states that there is a tendency of natural processes to lead towards spatial homogeneity of matter and energy. This could be viewed simply as entropy or thermodynamic equilibrium. It could be viewed as energy dispersal. We lose energy because things are not 100% efficient, and some of that energy is still in the Earth system in other forms. Energy is a gradient, and we can regather some of it from temperature differentials, pressure differentials, mechanical movements, wind, sound, chemical bonds, and even humidity, but it takes time to gather. The life forms on Earth are responsible for the atmosphere that exists, that we humans can breathe and gives us oxygen for cellular respiration, which we need to extract energy from the reaction between oxygen and other forms of energy humans take in, that is to say, food. We then create carbon dioxide, which we exhale, which then goes into the atmosphere to be used by other life forms, for example plants, that take sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to create oxygen and energy, that is energy in the form of sugars or oils, etc. The atmosphere is like an area where energy exchange can happen. It traps energy arriving from the sun so it can energize the life forms. The energy is still in the Earth system in dispersed ways. The sun heats the surface of the Earth up differently in different zones differentially, which creates temperature and pressure differentials, which drives wind movements and convection, and the rotation of the planet causes wind or atmospheric drag. Thermal low and high circulations form over land and water areas and drive weather patterns that can bring rain. The oceans gather a lot of energy trapped in the atmosphere, and different parts of the ocean are heated by the sun, and other areas are colder due to less sun, which also drives the thermohaline circulation of the ocean due to temperature differentials in terms of the latitude on the planet and depth of the water, as well as freshwater or saltwater content, which creates flows. The flows occur due to the thermodynamic equilibrium, where the energy is trying to naturally balance itself out. Life forms on Earth are very good at dissipating the momentum of the energy input in order to maintain a steady rate of flow. The creational laws are a lot better at dispersing the energy and utilizing it in organic ways more efficiently and storing it. Better than some of our best machines, which squander the energy, disperse it back into the Earth system, which the life forms on the planet are then scrambling to get back into stored energy forms. For example, the ocean heating up, expanding, and acidifying. Some of the earliest engines built had efficiencies of 2% to 3%, while modern engines are nearing 50% because we are running out of energy, and everyone is looking for ways to utilize as much as possible without waste. Life forms, on the other hand, are very good at recycling energy in cooperation with the other life forms in the system. We are not reaching the limits to food that Thomas Malthus theorized, but the thermodynamic limits of the planet itself, and human beings are using up all the energy in non-cooperation with the other life forms in the system. Human beings are basically taking the energy that has been stored up for thousands of years and adding it to the Earth system in the form of dispersed energy instead of stored energy, some of which is escaping to space. Some of it is being transferred to heat the atmosphere and oceans, some of it leading to more energetic storms and cascading down through all the other life forms, much more than they are used to handling. An example would be a dam, where there are high water levels on one side of the dam and lower water levels on the other side, creating a differential water height. The water flows down and hits a turbine and converts the water flow energy into a mechanical energy form with some loss of energy. The mechanical energy turns an electrical power generator, which then converts the mechanical energy again into electrical energy, where the energy loss occurs again. The electrical energy is then sent down power lines, in which energy loss occurs again. Those energy losses are still in the Earth system, however. It would be similar to the Earth being a large Beheri, and we have depleted the Beheri that took thousands of years to charge, and we used most of the Beheri up in about 300 years, and it's about empty now, and it will take a long time to recharge. Meanwhile, there will not be enough energy to support the current population once the Beheri has run out of energy. How did we get here? Before the Industrial Revolution happened, the human systems were becoming more complex, and the individual became more specialized and less of a generalist. They needed trade, but they wanted their trades to be equal in energy. They invented money and they invented economics, which led to humans scheming to always trade such that the items they were jing took more energy input than the items they were trading, so that they could accumulate more wealth with less energy than the next one. They began trading in money to make things easier. Humans began to loan the money out with the expectation that they would pay it back with interest. In other words, with more energy in return. Energy was never meant to be exchanged for goods. The money supply is inflating, and the energy supply is shrinking because they are incompatible with each other. Eventually, this system collapses whenever it takes more energy in to extract the energy out. The system could make energy cost rise to prolong the energy, but the rich would have plenty, while the poor die or create a revolt that does more damage to everyone as a whole, which could lead to the system collapsing anyway. Or they could keep energy cost low, and we all waste it faster until we all have no energy and have to revert to old ways before the Industrial Revolution. Or they could have a birth stop to drastically lower the population levels to reasonable levels so that we are not consuming as much energy and could transition to renewable energies more easily. Energy is priceless, and it belongs to all life forms, all of whom need it to live. If one goes to the store and buys bread for $3, it is very unlikely that the cost of the bread equals the cost of the gathering raw resources to make the plastic for the wrapper and materials for the twist tie, as well as the labor for the growing of wheat, harvesting of wheat, processing of wheat, the baking processes, and the transport of all those things from place to place, from field to farm silo, to manufacturing plant, to grocery store, to house, etc., and the price could never be standardized like they are. Economics is only an ideology and belief system. Economics is incompatible with nature and the collaboration of the real ecosystem. Economics has given humans the belief that the economy will always grow and that there is endless prosperity, and it drives the human beings to exploit the natural resources and each other. Using money will always involve someone gaining more over the other in some sort of swindle. Some people will benefit and some will not. Humans can steal, or they can force others into slavery, or they can create money-making schemes in order to extract more energy than others in less apparent ways. The economy does not correspond to reality, and it violates the laws of creation, and more specifically, thermodynamics of the Earth system, and we can live without it. Humans cannot swindle the laws of creation, but they can swindle other humans with money. Financial institutions will always externalize all the risks on the simple citizens of the world and on the environmental consequences that they will never pay for. Insurance companies will also raise their costs to externalize their risks to their other customers. Food companies will also find ways to add fake ingredients to foods so that they do not need as much energy input from the farm fields, while externalizing the health-damaging effects to the humans who consume such foods. Medical institutions will find ways to cut costs and externalize the risks using laws, which jeopardize the very care they are supposed to be giving. Pharmaceutical companies coerce lawmakers to pass laws allowing them to be immune from lawsuits from damages that their products are causing, which is externalizing the risk to someone else. These externalities are part of the swindle of money and economy ideology. This ideology is disconnected from reality. Before the invention of economics around the time of the Industrial Revolution, there was money in use, which goes back to antiquity. However, there did seem to be an awareness of keeping the value of money more in tune with the energy systems in reality.
From Aristotle, there are two sorts of wealth kieni. As I have said, one is a part of household management. The other is retail trade. The former, necessary and honorable, while that which consists in exchange is justly censured, for it is unnatural, and a mode by which men gain from one another. The most hated sort, and not from the natural object of it. For money was intended to be used in exchange, but not to increase at interest. And this term, interest, which means the birth of money from money, is applied to the breeding of money, because the offspring resembles the parents. Wherefore, of all modes of getting well, this is the most unnatural.
We do need energy in order to live, but we need to disperse and generate the power locally at the source where humans live. We cannot live in giant cities. If the power stopped working in a city, they would run out of food in 3 days. Cities are not sustainable. They consume too much power, that is to say, too much energy too quickly. One may argue that giant centralized cities would be more efficient, but the cities need to transport that energy to the rest of the city, and there is loss in energy, even if the materials for one large system versus the materials to make a bunch of small systems. Small generators at every residence with sufficient space could generate all the energy they need for their residents as well as their own transport. However, in order for this to happen, we need less people on the planet so that we can stop stealing energy from the ecosystem and live within our means. Since we are running out of energy because our societies are consuming power too quickly and renewables take more time, we will experience a drastic slowdown in power because we need more time units. We need to drastically reduce the population and as quick as possible. The clock is ticking fast.